Hello guys, I hope you're all okay. I thought I would give you a fun task that you could do at home, and you could also make yourself something nice to wear for the summer. And the weather will be lovely, so I'm sure you will need a nice denim skirt to wear. So, this is an old pair of jeans. These ones are particularly nice because they're Levi's, but unfortunately they have got a hole, a couple of holes just here, and around the crotch area is going a bit thin. So they're not really much good to wear. And so what I'm thinking I'm going to do with them is turn them into a skirt. So it's quite a simple thing to do really. You can either make a shortish skirt or you can make a slightly longer one depending on your style. And what I'm going to show you is basically how to take them apart and put them back together again and to make a skirt out of them. So you can really do this with any jeans at all that you've got, old ones. You could probably do it with some other trousers as well. However, thicker trousers definitely work better than thin ones. So anything like a sort of cargo trouser. You could even have a go at maybe using a pair of jogging bottoms and turning them into a little skirt as well, using the same sort of process. So the first thing I'm going to do is think about what sort of length I want my skirt. So I don't want it too short, and I'm definitely going to cut it off a bit longer than I need. So I've got plenty of room, so it's better to cut it longer and then make it shorter than it is to cut it too short and not be able to make it longer again. So you can use any kind of scissors for this, but I have a nice pair of reasonable dressmaking scissors. Obviously they need to be fairly sharp. I'm going to fold my jeans in half like this so that I've got them like that, and then all I'm going to do is hack off the bottom of the legs. Okay, I'm going to leave lots of space because I'm not quite sure how long I want the skirt to be. I'm going to make sure they're reasonably even so they're matching at the ends. Flatten them out. Okay, and then I'm going to use my scissors. If your scissors are not very sharp, then I would suggest just doing them both separately. So do the first one, I'll show you how to do that as well, and then line it up and do the second one. So I'll do it like that just to show you. So on this one, I'm just going to cut it off around about here. So I'm just going to cut through it like this. And again, remember, you can make it shorter if you want to, but at the moment I can't make it any longer. So I've just cut through that one there, taken that bit off, and then what I'm going to do is line that up with that one there, so you can see how to do it if your scissors aren't very sharp. And then I'm just going to cut through again, just carefully. It doesn't matter if it's straight or anything really at the moment, it's just so that you can open up the seams, which are these bits here, because these will start to come undone, and you can split the trousers open along those lines, and it's easier to do if you can just get to the bottoms. Don't throw these bits away because you may well need these bits for when you make the rest of the skirt, so keep those bits. And anyway, they're quite good for customizing things, and definitely reuse them because it's nice denim. Okay, so that's the first stage of what you need to do, and what you'll end up with is a pair of cut-offs, which of course, if you like a pair of cut-off jeans, you can always roll them up and have them like that, and a couple of spare pieces. And now this is the next stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up this middle seam here. Okay, so this is the seam, so the bit where the two bits of fabric join and you've got stitching. If you are lucky enough to have an unpicker, then you can just unpick along here, or a tiny little pair of nail scissors would work. So you basically just want to undo the stitches along the seam line, and if you want to, just cut it, so like this. Try and get it as close, you can see, open it up, as close to the edge of the stitching as you can, because then you'll get this nice bit of stitching that's still left. So I'm cutting nice and close to the edge, hope you can see that nice and clearly along there. So what I'm left with is this, like this. Don't worry if it's not super neat, because we can use these bits and we can make them look nice and frayed afterwards and make that part of the design of the skirt. So the whole thing is really not to make it too neat looking, because actually that whole sort of distressed, like slightly frayed look is quite cool. So I'm going to cut all the way up here. Now I've got this bit that's slightly ripped. I'm going to cut along that bit right up to the middle. And again, like I said, you can unpick it if you want to, and you end up with really sort of the same kind of result. And then again, the same off this one. So right up in there like that, nice and close to the seam, like that, all the way up with my scissors. So basically what I've done is just open the whole thing out. So you can see in a sec, once I get to the top, the two should meet. And then you can kind of see how this is going to be a skirt. There we go, cut that all the way through. So if you open that up, as you can see now, you've got front bits and back bits like that, okay? And as you can probably see, you can start to get the idea that this is going to be the front of the skirt down here. We're going to need to put an extra bit in there. If you're going to have a longer one, we're going to need to add more. And then this is going to be the back of the skirt. So we're going to join it down here. And again, we might have to put a panel in depending how short or long you want your skirt to be. So the next stage for making your skirt is you need to fill out the middle sections, okay? Because obviously you've got the front here and the back, and then at the moment you've got a big gap. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can overlap a part of it so that we don't have to use as much material to fill it in, and you'll find that your trousers will sort of fold naturally, and if they don't, what you can do is split this a bit further up so that you don't get this kind of bump here, and then you'll actually get a further over fold on this bit. You'll also need preferably some pins if you have some, but that's not the end of the world, because you can, if you've got a needle and thread, you can just sort of sew it into place, and your spare bits here, which you're going to open up and use to fill up any of this gap here to make the front part of the skirt. Right, the next thing to do is to work out your skirt length, because obviously if you want a very short sort of mini skirt, you're going to need to cut it off higher, and if you want a longer skirt, which is what I want to do, want it too short, you're going to have to cut it a bit longer. And also, obviously having this panel, you'll need to know how big the panel needs to be to fit into the gap to make the length of the skirt and to fill the front of it. Okay? So what I'm going to do is try the skirt on, and then when I've tried it on, I'm just going to get someone maybe to help me, or I could try and do it myself, but I want to put a mark roughly at the length that I want it to be. The other thing that's useful is something to mark it with. This is just chalk. You can use chalk, even your brothers and sisters' little play chalk, or if you don't have chalk, just something that will show up on this denim, so a pen of some kind or something. As long as it shows on the denim, you'll be okay. So it's always better to go a bit longer, like I said before, than a bit shorter, and so mark it out if you can, get someone to mark it for you so it's the right length, and then if you want to get the other side the same. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to open up this front bit, like I said, just to give me a bit more material so that I can fold it slightly. I'm just cutting down the side of this seam here, just to make it a little bit easier to close it back up. I'm going to do a similar thing at the back. Quite hard to cut through, so hopefully you've got some sharp scissors, or you can unpick it like that. Don't cut too far up, because you don't want to cut into the zip and ruin the zip of it. And then I'm just going to turn it round, and we've got a similar thing at the back. So I'm just cutting down the low side here, and on the back I'm just going to cut up about the same distance, so you don't want to go too far, like that. Okay. Just to the bottom of the pockets roughly. So now you can see that that should lay a bit flatter than I had before. The other thing when I've got my scissors out is I'm just going to cut down the seam of this part, because I'm going to use this to fill up the gap. So if I cut down the larger seam, again, a little bit hard to cut through, so if you're using sharp, really sharp scissors, then you just get someone to help you. My scissors are pretty sharp, but I'm an adult, so I can do it safely. So So then I've got this open bit which I can use. It's easier if it's a bigger piece like that. So with this bit, as you hopefully will be able to see, if I fold this over there, that's going to start to close the front up a bit, and now I haven't got a big lump. So this sort of makes part of the skirt design. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't twist it too much, because what I don't want to do is get this bump here. I want it to be nice and flat, and I just got to go with what sort of it naturally does. So I'm not going to force it into a shape. So I'll just put it there so you can see. So I'm just going to sort of fold that across, and then when I'm happy with that, I'll put a couple of pins in if you've got pins. If you've not got pins, then you can use needle and thread, and you can just put a big stitch in there. It doesn't need to be lots of tiny stitches, because you're going to sew it later, but one big stitch about the length of my pin would be fine. So about, you know, about this sort of size would be fine, and that would hold that in place while you sort out the rest. And then what I'm going to do is flip it over, and I'm going to do the same at the back. I've got a little hole bit here, so I'm going to sort that out later. What I'm going to do is fold this thick bit over the top of the thin bit, and it will close up a bit of the back. Again, make sure it's nice and flat. I'm trying to make sure I don't pin through both layers, just the top layer. Put a pin in it like that, and that should keep that in place. And then I've closed up a little bit of the skirt front and the skirt back, and made it nice and flat so it doesn't bump up. Okay. So I'm going to show you now how to insert this panel. I'll show you two ways of doing it. One with needle and thread, so you'll need needle and thread if you don't have a sewing machine, and the other way is using the sewing machine if you've got one and you know how to use it. It's very, very easy. So if you've got a sewing machine and you haven't really used it before, now is a really good time to try, because it's literally like the easiest thing to do on the machine. It's just sewing a couple of lines. If you don't have a sewing machine, which I know a lot of you don't, I'm going to show you the needle and thread version first. So you need some thread that either matches, especially if your stitching skills are not brilliant, or you can use a contrast thread like denim has, so like a yellow, but then you have to try and keep your stitching a bit neater. This is probably just enough thread to go down the length of here, and then I'll probably need a longer piece to go down the length of here. Okay, usually about the length of what you're stitching plus maybe another half is good. I'm going to thread up my needle and then tie a knot at the end. We should have all done this in your lessons, so you should know how to do your knots. I'm going to tie a quick knot by wrapping it around and twisting it like this. Give it a little pull, and then I've got a nice big knot at the end, and my needle at this end. Keep my fingers on the end of there, and then my thread won't come pulling out all the time. Okay. There are needles and threads in the packs that you should have had home. If you don't have the right colour, you can always email me and I will leave some out for you to come and collect. So for this, I'm using a matching colour so that it doesn't matter too much whether you can see it or not. I'm going to start at this end down here and through the end here. Okay, now for this you're going to need fairly small stitches, because otherwise all that's going to happen is it's not going to be strong enough, and when you wear your skirt and you stretch and move in it, okay, it's just going to come apart, because this thread is quite thin and it will break easily. So the smaller you can do your stitches, the stronger your skirt will be. I mean, I would suggest going over it twice if you've got the patience to with your stitching. You notice that you can't see my stitches. That's kind of what I had planned. So I've used a navy blue coloured thread so you can't see them, and I've just made them quite small, because also that means you can't see them, but it also means that they're stronger. Okay, if you want to double up your thread, that also helps, because it means it makes it a little bit stronger again. So I'm coming up through the back, I'm doing a little stitch, it's about 1 centimetre long, and I'm coming back down through, back up again, through the front, about 1 centimetre away, and back down again. Okay, just making sure that it's going through both layers. You'll see the stitches at the back there. Okay, so there's my stitches. And then once I've got past one of the pins, and I've done my stitches to just after the pin, I can take the pin out, and then we'll check whether it's attached. Okay, if you're going to do lots of jumping around and exercises in your skirt, make this bit nice and strong, otherwise it will just rip and come apart when you move in it. okay, especially if you do the splits. So that's all the way past there then, so I can take that out. Obviously going to keep going all the way up till I get to here, and then when I'm done at the back, okay, all I'm going to do is just take a little bit of the material and make a loop, and then I'm going to go through the loop with my thread to tie a knot. We should have done this in class as well, so you should know how to finish your stitching. Double for a double knot to make it nice and strong. Okay, obviously that's what you'll do at the end. Now I'm not going to do the whole lot of stitching. I'll do it on my sewing machine like that. Okay, and then you can see that obviously is not attached, but that bit is quite well attached together, and you can't see the stitching apart from on the back there. Okay, if you're doing it by hand, sew all the way up here to this point, and then start again over here and sew all the way up to here, and make sure you go right up to the top so you don't have a hole here. Okay, and then obviously the same when you turn it over, where you pinned your back panel in, because I haven't done that yet, and do the same on the back so the whole back is attached in, and you can see your skirt is starting to come together. Okay, it's actually looking quite nice. And then we're going to do some customization on it once you finish, and I'm going to show the sewing machine one, so if you don't need to use the sewing machine and you're hand sewing it, you can skip the next part of the video. Right, if you're going to machine sew, okay, so what I'm going to do is machine sew up this strip here. You obviously need to get your sewing machine set up so that you've got your thread in it and it's all ready to go. I've got a normal foot on there, and I've got some navy blue thread. Okay, you might find it's quite hard to sew through because some of these parts are quite thick. So I've got like 2 layers of denim on that bit and 2 layers of denim on that bit. So there is a setting on your machine called the tension. Okay, you might not know how to use this, but this is a good time to learn. You can make the tension stronger or looser by turning this. Okay, the general setting is about halfway, but you can make it looser or stronger by turning this, and all that does is help you to sew a bit easier. So maybe fiddle with it and figure out if your sewing machine isn't working very well through the denim, you might need to move that. Okay, make sure you've got plenty of pins to hold it in place, and then pop it underneath. Okay, it's quite thick, so I have to watch my fingers. Make sure, and this is really important, you don't catch any of the back of your skirt in there. So you pull it apart and make sure there is no back layer, because you don't want to sew the front and the back of your skirt together, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to sew all the way down this length here and join that. The sewing machine will be stronger. Go steady to begin with, because like I said, it's a very thick layer of fabric, especially on all these joins. Okay, so I'm going nice and steady just to make sure that I don't break my needle. So I'm just doing a stitch length about halfway. Okay, so whatever your middle length of stitch, that's about right, because that will be nice and strong. Okay, so at the beginning I've gone forwards and backwards. Your machine might do it differently to make sure that it doesn't come undone. And then I'm just sewing down, and because I've chosen a matching colour, you shouldn't be able to see the stitching. Okay, so this bit of denim here where the line of stitching is still on the jeans will look like that's the bit that's sewn, but it's not. I'm sewing next to it. Okay, again, if you want to add the detail, you could put some yellow thread in, and if you're quite good at sewing straight and making nice lines, you could have some yellow thread running up through there and make that a feature. Okay, we're going to add more decoration to it later, so if you don't want to do that now, okay, you just want to get it sewn together, just sew it together with some thread that matches, so navy blue or whatever colour your skirt is, and then we'll add some decoration later and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm just sewing all the way down. It needs a little bit of help because it's quite thick. When I get to my pin, just keeping my fingers out of the way, just take my pin out. Okay, or you can turn your pin sideways, making sure the fabric is nice and flat so that I didn't get any bumps or creases. Okay, all the way down like that, making sure I'm catching it behind. This bit's a bit wonky, so I haven't secured that maybe well enough, so I'm just going to hold it in place. Take this pin out. Just make sure, again, double checking that I'm not catching any of the bit behind in there, holding it so that it's nice and secure. Take the pin out, mind the needle. Okay, if you're being really careful, what you should do is switch your machine off, take your pin out and then put your machine back on. Okay, you'll get someone to help you. So, all the way down to the end. Through the thick bit, again going a bit steady and reverse. You might want to just turn the corner and make sure that you don't get a hole here. So just turning around that little corner bit just to make sure I didn't get a hole right at the front. And just coming up there like that. And then reverse again. Okay, so remember to reverse at the end because that ties off your stitching. pull it out and cut your thread. And hopefully what we've got is a nice strong attached join all the way down the side there. Okay, if you've got any holes you can always hand stitch them up, but that's basically how to sew the front together. Obviously you need to do this piece as well up here, and then when you've done that you can turn it over and you can attach in your back panel, which I've not pinned in yet, and sew exactly the same on your back panel. Okay, and then you've got your basic skirt. Okay, mine's looking quite nice, and then we can think about maybe adding any decoration or detail or anything like that that you want to add to it to make it look a bit more interesting. Okay, have fun.